we begin with a question that refuses to leave us alone. What happens to a civilization when it grows so sophisticated, so orderly, so quietly powerful, that it leaves behind everything except the sound of its own disappearance? The Indus Valley Civilization, one of humanity's earliest urban wonders, literally wrote its identity into symbols we still can't read. And here's the counterintuitive part. They may have achieved one of the most stable societies in the ancient world, without kings, without war, and perhaps without hierarchy as we understand it. Welcome back to Nations and Notions, where we journey through the rise and fall of peoples, powers, and the ideas that make nations feel like nations. Today, we're heading into a landscape that challenges almost everything we think we know about national strength, legitimacy, and the collective mindset. A civilization older than Babylon, quieter than Egypt, and yet capable of building cities whose drainage systems still outperform some modern ones. In this episode, we're not just asking what the Indus Valley Civilization was, we're asking who they were, and what their choices reveal about societal cohesion, institutional integrity, and the moral dilemmas of shared identity. This is not simply archaeology. It's a meditation on a civilization that rose without drama and vanished without a fight. And in its silence, it holds a mirror up to us today. The river that made people possible. We travel together into a world from roughly 3300 BCE, standing along the Indus River's endless sweep. Water so consistent, so generous, that entire cities could bloom in its floodplains like engineered gardens. Here's where the first surprise hits us. The Indus Valley Civilization didn't grow around a king or a prophet. It grew around a rhythm, the reliability of water, the predictability of seasons, and the collective discipline needed to manage both. When we look out across early sites like Mehrbar, and then the urban giants, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, we see something fascinating. Blocks aligned by grid, houses standardized, streets engineered with drainage systems that would impress a contemporary mayor. There's a quiet confidence in this level of planning, a belief that order didn't need to scream to be heard, a belief that strength could be woven into bricks, baked by communal intention. As we move through Mohenjo-daro's ruins, we notice something missing from the usual story of early states. No palaces, no extravagant tombs, no temples towering over the masses, no depictions of conquest or kings. It's as if they asked a question that most civilizations never dared to consider. What if legitimacy came from coordination, not domination? And maybe that's the first psychological insight this civilization offers us, that societal cohesion can sometimes grow not from centralized power, but from shared habits of survival. A society not built on the fear of collapse, but on the memory of cooperation. The Indus cities were so uniform in their brick dimensions, the famous 1:2:4 ratio, that archaeologists believe some kind of quality control bureaucracy existed 5,000 years ago. Their sewage systems, even by conservative standards, were 3,000 years ahead of their time. In Act 1, we understand the origin, a people choosing order without spectacle. And that choice shapes everything that follows. Cities without kings. We step now into the heart of the civilization. Mohenjo-daro citadel, Harappa's granaries, Dholavira's reservoirs. And here, the Indus Valley Civilization reveals its second defining trait. It organized itself like a modern state, but without visible rulers. This is where the political psychology becomes irresistible. Think about it. All known ancient empires, Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, placed authority at the center. Kings, gods, dynasties. Power radiated downward. But in the Indus world, authority feels horizontal. If a king existed, He did not build monuments to himself. If priests existed, they left behind no temples demanding eternal allegiance. If elites existed, they lived in houses barely distinguishable from their neighbors. It's almost unsettling. A civilization powerful enough to shape half a continent, yet humble enough to leave behind no ego. This humility is its mystery, and perhaps its vulnerability. We look at the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro, one of their most iconic structures. It's a monumental pool built with bitumen-sealed bricks, but it wasn't a royal bath. It wasn't a palace ornament. It feels communal, ritualistic maybe, symbolic of purification or social unity. Here we catch another glimpse of their collective psyche. They built their largest structures for the public, not for the powerful. What does that say about their concept of legitimacy? What does that say about their moral choices? It suggests a philosophy of government that prioritized order, health, and equity over glory. A choice, a deliberate one, to center society on institutions rather than individuals. We sometimes romanticize the cradle of civilization as a battleground of emperors and conquests, but the Indus story forces us to confront another model of national strength. Strength built on networks, not crowns. The Indus trade network stretched from Central Asia to the Persian Gulf and possibly Mesopotamia. Harappan seals have been found in ancient Iraq. They were expert shipbuilders and traders. Lothal's dockyard is one of the oldest known in human history. And all of this, the global trade, the uniform city designs, the engineered canals, required a governance structure capable of remarkable coordination. We just don't know its name. It's a reminder that sometimes the most resilient institutional integrity hides in plain sight, visible only through the order it produces, not the symbols it leaves behind. The script we cannot read. Now we enter a part of the journey that feels almost intimate. We bend down to examine the small carved seals scattered across excavation sites, symbols of animals, geometric shapes, human figures, and a mysterious script. And here we confront the civilization's biggest psychological enigma. They wrote. We simply can't read it. The Indus script appears on seals, pottery, amulets, and tools. Short inscriptions, brief, concise, each one a message meant to be understood quickly by its own society. These symbols might hold answers to everything: their governments, their trade, their beliefs, their conflicts. But the script has refused to yield. No Rosetta Stone, no bilingual inscriptions, no long administrative texts. And so we sit with a civilization speaking to us plainly, and yet not at all. Here's the deeper unsettling point. We understand ancient Egypt's self-image because Egypt wouldn't stop talking about itself. We understand Mesopotamia because it engraved its anxieties everywhere. But the Indus civilization, one of the greatest of its time, left no narrative of itself. This silence is its identity. Maybe this was a culture that valued action over proclamation, process over mythology, daily ritual over immortal storytelling. A people secure enough not to need the permanence of words. Despite being one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, the Indus Valley has yielded almost no weapons, very little evidence of warfare or conquest. And this might be the most counterintuitive insight of all. A civilization that thrived not through domination, but through stability and predictability. But here's where the moral dilemma emerges. When a society places so much trust in routine, what happens when the rhythm collapses without conquest? We arrive now at the most haunting chapter, the Indus Valley Civilization's decline around 1900 BCE. And what strikes us is what's missing again. No smoking ruins, no invaders burning cities, no mass graves, no dramatic battles. Instead, we see signs of gradual stress, rivers shifting courses, drought patterns intensifying, trade routes faltering, infrastructure decaying. It's crisis recovery in slow motion, and ultimately a failure of resilience. This is where the story forces us to think deeply about the fragility of institutional integrity. A network-based society is powerful when resources flow, but when rivers change course, or when monsoons weaken, or when external trade collapses, the very decentralization that once made the society egalitarian becomes a liability. Their cohesion depended on environmental stability, and when that stability vanished, the civilization did not adapt quickly enough. We watch as once planned cities slowly lose their order, streets fill with debris, weights and measures lose standardization, kilns stop firing bricks, public works deteriorate. It's a quiet collapse, a fading rather than a fall. And as the great cities empty, people scatter into villages. Localism replaces central coordination. The rhythm of collective identity breaks. There's a painful lesson here. Even the most organized societies can unravel if they cannot respond to systemic shocks. The Indus Valley Civilization teaches us that silence can be strength until the world demands noise. What the Indus Valley teaches us today. As we step back from the ruins, we're left with a strange blend of admiration and melancholy. This was a civilization that achieved extraordinary social cohesion without kings, a civilization that mastered engineering without tyranny, a civilization that built institutions so quietly that we still struggle to see them. Their legacy challenges our assumptions about power, that national strength must be loud, that legitimacy must be monumental, that governance must be hierarchical. The Indus Valley Civilization whispers another possibility, that a society can thrive when its greatest monument is the everyday dignity of order. But their disappearance carries a second lesson, one about resilience, crisis recovery, and the moral choices nations face when systems fail. When climate shifts, when trade collapses, when institutions strain under pressure, the Indus world shows us that even the most advanced urban systems can falter if they cannot adapt to new realities. That institutional integrity is not measured only by stability in good times, but by flexibility during upheaval. And perhaps their greatest gift is the humility they leave us with, a reminder that not all greatness demands immortality in writing or conquest. Some civilizations speak through stone drains and standardized bricks, through the absence of war, through the moral choice to prioritize public welfare over personal glory. And maybe that's why the Indus Valley Civilization feels so modern, so psychologically resonant today, because it forces us to rethink what a successful society looks like. If this civilization could rise from cooperation rather than domination, what might we be capable of if we learned the same lesson? Thank you for traveling with us. Let's continue the conversation. What do you think the Indus script would reveal if we could finally read it? Until next time, this has been Nations and Notions, where every civilization becomes a mirror.